Meanwhile, Maine Senate candidate Graham Platner's critics won't let him sweep his problematic past under the rug. We wouldn't fit under any rug anyway. It's huge. Platner mocked a veteran who earned a Purple Heart for his bravery in Afghanistan. That veteran is now calling Platner a prime example of the left's identity crisis. Here's an op-ed that he wrote. Quote, "A real man by the lights of the Democratic Party, Platner presents himself as relatable to the working class Americans. But in reality, he's a typical elitist who believes blue-collar, hard-working, salt-of-the-earth rural Americans are stupid and racist." All of that, a quote. Platner refused to apologize for saying that Purple Heart recipient Teddy Daniels didn't deserve to live. Those are his words. When he was shot 4 times by the Taliban. Here is, in fact, Daniels.
I saw the video, and honestly, I don't want an apology. I don't need an apology. I consider the source of where the comment came from. And I'm the type of person that in order for me to worry about what you say, first I have to respect you. And there's zero to no respect for a self-proclaimed communist. The ironic thing is some guys run towards gunfire and other guys run towards keyboards. And I think that's a big difference.
Such a huge line, Rebecca.
What a great guy, Teddy Daniels. Purple Heart recipient, great American hero, witty. And he shoots back at this criticism by saying, look, I consider the source, you're a communist. If you look at the statements in the past from Platner, I mean, these are remarks too. He's made remarks online as well. And he was between the ages of 24 and 37. So this is not a young guy making these remarks, because he says, look, I don't mean him a lot anymore, but really misogynistic. I mean, he had some lines that basically blamed the victim for sexual assault. Lots of statements that were anti-white. He commented on this one thread that was quoted, "Living in white rural America, I'm afraid to tell you they really are racist or stupid as Trump thinks." These are his remarks. And so he's got a long record, and you can say, look, I no longer think that way. He even has a tattoo that has Nazi symbology. He's made remarks where he's defended tactics by Hamas online. And so, at some point, you got to say, look, you've got a long historical record. You cannot just sort of disavow this stuff now. You can be sorry, but you're going to have to do it somewhere else. You can't do it in the Senate.
You know what's missing here, David? A long line of Democrat voters and Democrat lawmakers disavowing, saying, oh, this is horrible, that he should definitely take this back. I guess you let him go through on the ticket, but maybe they have somebody else. I don't know. It's not like, as Rebecca just pointed out, it's not like he just said these statements. They've been out there for years.
Yeah, his track record's not up for debate. Like you said, he can't sweep him under a rug. There's not one big enough. But also, peel this back to the beginning. The Democrat establishment put him in place. County committees, other committees choose the candidates. They work to get that candidate there. So this is a reflection of the actual Democrat Party leadership, not just the base that's cast in these votes. And Terry's answer was simply brilliant and, frankly, much more military and what I would expect from a service member, which is one, if I don't respect you, I don't care what you say. He's not saying you don't have a right to say it. And he also will not accept the excuse, whether he has PTS or PTSD, either case, that is a crutch. I personally know many who suffer with PTS and PTSD, friends of mine that deal with this in many ways, that have gone to the levels of even taking Ibogaine for their treatment. And they will never be Graham Platner and blame it on that. And they're dealing with real issues. It's a matter of respect. The Democrat Party did this. If they want to put Graham Platner up as a representative of their leadership, that's what they're doing, and that's what people should make a choice on.
Lisa?
Well, look, this is just the opposition research that we know about. I mean, I spent almost a decade working in campaign politics, including on a top Senate race as a communications director, the NRCC, which is the House campaign arm, vice president of a polling firm. This is just what we know about. Yep. I guarantee that you have people both on the Collins race as well as the senatorial campaign committee who are digging through additional stuff that's about to come out about him. Look, he's a creep, but so far he's been an effective creep. In the Democrat primary in Maine, he was able to take out incumbent governor Janet Mills. He's been a prolific fundraiser so far as well. What I find interesting is that he's cosplaying as a working man. New investigative reporting shows that he went to an elite prep school, that he comes from a wealthy background. It's the same thing as Zohran Mamdani as well. It's all these, progressive socialists who turn out to be frauds. Bernie Sanders flying private, AOC going to the Met Gala, right? So they're part of the system that they claim to hate. So it's all phony. Susan Collins, the Republican there, she's been a political survivor. However, we'll see. How bad is this political cycle for Republican, and is it so bad that it overtakes his personal political vulnerabilities?
Yeah,
we'll see.
She's actually currently running 9 points behind him right now. But as someone reminded me earlier today on the Focus, she sometimes is behind, right? I mean, that can happen in a state like that is so predominantly blue. But does this matter to voters? That's the question.
Yeah, the polling hasn't necessarily been predictive. I mean, we'll see if it's accurate this time. My favorite line of Teddy Daniels' piece is, flannel shirt and all, Graham Platner is Tim Walz on steroids. And it reminded me of how floored I was when Tim Walz was chosen, with all the jazz hands and the mannerisms. And I thought, this guy does not appeal to people like my father, the same type of men that they are endeavoring to win. When you dig into these Reddit posts, he posted them under P. Hustle. That's what Graham Platner posted them under. Well, P. Hustle posted that the Army is absolute trash, full of fat, lazy trash, who would rather not be in uniform and generally attract a lower standard of a person. Can you believe that? He wants to be a U.S. Senator, and that's what he said about the U.S. Army. We know what he said about Teddy Daniels, that he's a dumb MFer who didn't deserve to live. Oh, wait, and he had words for our Navy SEALs, too. Many of these posts he deleted. They were generally incompetent. But he did have high praise for the Army Rangers. He is wrong on every count. When you look at the military, when you look at the Army, it's disproportionately men and women from the South who enlist much higher than the percentage that they represent. It is about 70% Christian. So I wonder, is his problem with the military, or is it with the type of people in the military who are not dumb and lazy? They are the best of the best. They are the people I would want on my team if I were drafting a team. Christian men and women from the South. I grew up, they're my friends and neighbors. They're wonderful people, and thank you for your service. You do not deserve a United States senator who says these things.
I think he gave us a clue. I think he considers them to be racist. I think he considers them to be the things that are in his own words. You pointed out something really critical there, too. So he deleted a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. And apologized. Not enough.
But he was an adult, as Rebecca pointed out, when he said those things.
Not a youngster.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.